Thank you for joining us. We'll begin momentarily. We're just going to give everyone a chance to log in. Thanks. Hello, and thank you for joining us, and welcome to the Miro Consulting webinar on Microsoft price increases and changes to enterprise agreements. My name is Sean Donohue, and I'm the VP of Marketing here at Miro Consulting. Joining me today is Miro Consulting's Director of Technical Services, Tim Hegedus. If you have any questions during the broadcast, please use the question box in your webinar control panel, and we will answer them at the end of the session. Before we begin, I'd like to briefly explain who Miro is. We specialize in software audit defense, cloud migrations, contract negotiations, license optimization, and license management for Oracle, Microsoft, IBM, and Adobe. Since 2000, Miro has helped hundreds of clients worldwide to optimize their total cost of ownership and has overseen over 1.5 billion in licensing transactions. Please note that if you submit a question to us today, all questions will be kept confidential and are only visible to us, the presenters. All right, so let's get started with the presentation on Microsoft's price increases and changes to the enterprise agreement. Tim?
Thank you very much, Sean. I appreciate that. And good morning, afternoon, or evening to all of our audience members. Thanks very, very much for attending our presentation this afternoon. We think you will find it particularly useful. As is the case with many technology decisions, the price, that is the cost of the solution, plays a huge role. And this presentation actually centers on price. And whether you are in the throes of your current enterprise agreement renewal, or whether it is due at the end of this calendar year, or even sometime in the future, this webinar is really designed to inform your decisions. Now, it's worth noting that this announcement doesn't impact your current enterprise agreement, but you could be in for something of a greater than anticipated sticker shock come renewal time. So why is this so important? Well, because an enterprise agreement or software assurance under a Microsoft Products and Services Agreement, or MPSA, are both 3-year commitments. So positioning and flexibility are key to helping ensure the maximum value from your Microsoft investments. So let's examine what these announcements actually are. They were issued in late June of this year, which is a little ahead of Microsoft's fiscal year end, and therefore slightly atypical of Microsoft. But since it's happening rather quickly, it would seem sensible to get this information out to its customers quickly. And whether that is quickly enough, I guess depends on your situation. In any event, it remains to be seen. So there was multiple parts of this announcement. We are focused on some of the key ones. The first is volume discounts for enterprise agreement level A, or EA level A. They disappear. In other words, there is no automatic discount, volume discount provided with smaller enterprise agreements. Those are in the range of 500 through 2,399 qualified users or qualified seats. But while this automatic discount goes away, there is still room for negotiation. And Miro can certainly assist you with that. And we're going to go into that negotiation in a little bit more detail in just a little bit. The second part of the announcement was that no C-level for open agreements will exist anymore. It's terminated. And these include the open license, open value, those types of agreements. Only the no level will remain. So if you purchase just a handful of one-off licenses using an open agreement, or if you use an open agreement as your standard, simply because you are able to do that, you're a smaller shop, for example, you want to recognize that the price will increase about 2 to 5%. Okay. Microsoft has also stated that this new pricing scheme reduces inconsistency. That's their words. It reduces inconsistency in its various programs. Yet it can also be viewed as another way that Microsoft is making its cloud-based services ever more compelling. Okay, and there are other changes afoot, right, including a reduced support lifecycle for Office and Windows 10, among others. And all of this goes into effect October of 2018. That's just a little over a month away. But this is for new purchases, as I indicated, and new agreements, as I indicated. And the price listed in the existing enterprise agreement in your customer price sheet, or CPS, will still be honored. Okay, so if you are, say, in coming to the first true-up, first anniversary of your current enterprise agreement, the prices that you will pay have already been determined. They are in your enterprise agreement. And so those will still be honored. It's when you renew that this new policy, these new rules surrounding the enterprise agreement come into play. So with that, we'll go into a little bit more detail. Remember, though, that our intent here is to provide you with the information that will assist you with your preparing both your budgetary plans and your technical plans. And if you've already submitted a budget amount that does not include these price adjustments, hopefully you will still have time so that you can get them back and make some additional modification to them. Now, the primary target for Microsoft changes are for its flagship enterprise agreement and its open agreements. Now, before we go forwards, let's go back just a little way. A couple of years ago, Microsoft changed the minimum entry point for its enterprise agreement to 500 on-premise qualified users or seats. This was double the amount that had originally prevailed. And it's worth noting that 250 is still the minimum for online users. But this action brought with it the rise of the cloud service providers, or CSPs, who host and support the Microsoft products they license to you and I. The CSP program is being strengthened with this latest news. So you're probably going to hear your Microsoft account team talk to you about CSPs. Now, Level A still exists for now, right? But the volume discount that it has enjoyed is being removed. Right? So the price point is the same as the MPSA, or the Microsoft Products and Services Agreement, for smaller programs. But there are three very essential subplots that we see here. First, there is the negotiation, right? We believe that, at least in the early going, Microsoft will allow your organization to negotiate back to the original Level A price. Okay, so that's important. When we say back to the original Level A price, we're not talking about the Level A price from a year ago or from current. We're talking about the Level A price that exists at the time that your agreement is renewed. So if that's after October 1st of 2018, you're going to see a price increase in any event. But you won't see it as dramatically as if you had not negotiated that additional discount. The second point here is that you may have heard the same rumors that we have heard about Microsoft abandoning smaller enterprise agreements to the effect of eliminating level A and beginning support for EAs at that 2400 mark. That would be the current level B. We don't see it that way, but we actually could be witnessing the start of this. And third, and in conjunction with that prior point, Microsoft recognizes that 100% adoption of its cloud technologies isn't very likely to occur. You can go into a host of reasons why, but suffice it to say at this time that Microsoft, in our view, is reserving the enterprise agreement for its very large or larger established customers. Right? No, as we mentioned in our opening, the level C for open agreements will also be discontinued. For those of you who are using these agreements for your primary or one-off licensing needs, figure on at least a 2 to 5% price increase coupled with the announced product price increases. That's important. Coupled with the associated product price increases. Now, let's look at what those price increases might be, right? So what can we expect? Well, it's not so much the percentage of the increase, by and large at least, but rather how this increase is multiplied within your organization. For example, if Office costs about $600 for its license and 3 years of software assurance under an EA, it would be renewed for software assurance only for about $95 annually. So now this 4% causes that cost to arrive to $99 per year. Now multiply that 4% increase across some 1,500 licenses, and suddenly this turns into a $6,000 increase, and that's annual. Okay, so that's the first. But if you can, get ready for some more math, right? Increase your current software assurance spend by 4%. That same quantity of Office licenses, right, can translate into over $142,000 in annual spend. Okay, that's what 1,500 software assurance on 1,500 licenses would cost. So simply by having level A in the license agreement, that becomes $148,000. That would be a total of nearly $20,000 over the course of the enterprise agreement. You know, so we have that to start with, and then we add back in new licenses, true-ups, and other price increases that we'll talk about in a minute, and you can be in for quite a surprise. And this is in addition to any price increases that occurred since you last renewed your enterprise agreement. So when you start hearing about price increases in the 10, 15, 20, even 30% range, this is the area that we're starting to get into. So if you have any of these license agreements in place, an EA, an MPSA, or even the older Select and Select Plus agreements, be aware that your renewals or purchases under the Select or Select Plus programs will increase come October. And then earlier we spoke about the open agreements, the 2% to 5% increase for them. And government pricing is also expected to increase. Now, government pricing is standardly given at level D, but since all of the prices are going to increase, level D will increase as well. And Microsoft is also implementing a phased-in approach for its government customers to allow them to have ample time to adjust their budgets. Now, when we talk about individual products, right, this is where these price adjustments can really inflict some pain. And this is where transitioning to an online service may become more of a consideration or more of an immediate consideration. So let's start at the beginning, right, with Office. For all on-premise Office and Office application deployments, the price tag will have become, after October 1st, 10% steeper, right? That's 10% from right now. Combine that with the core access, the core client access license suite, what we call the core CAL or the enterprise CAL suite. Those price increases of the same 10% combined with the Office increase, and now we're really having a conversation, right? So in other words, is it worth 10% more to you from today's price to retain these deployments on premise? And perhaps that's not an all or nothing type of question. Perhaps there are particular profiles or what Microsoft refers to as personas that can be transitioned and others who would not be transitioned. That all calls for a much, much deeper evaluation, something that really looks at the various uses and use cases surrounding each of these profiles or personas. We're seeing that Microsoft has announced where Windows Server will be increased in price by 10%. And the RDS CAL, or the Remote Desktop Services CAL, they'll change a little bit as well. A little bit meaning 30%, as the device CAL has its price raised to match the user CAL. Very similar to what we see with SQL Server right now. So some other changes that will come effective October is the renaming of Windows 10, right? The per user and per designations will be simply supplanted by E3, denoting per user, and nothing, or the lack of E3, denoting per device. And their pricing will be the same. And we should also note that the Windows 10 E5 offering will only be available in the per user construct. So it will no longer be available in the per device construct. So that may be something that your organization has worked on relative to having an E5 program for devices that are, say, used for logistics purposes, used by many, many users over the course of a work cycle. Those are going to be changed quite a bit. Now, we want to turn our attention to more specifically towards Office 2019, mostly from the perspective that it is the most commonly used productivity tool installed in our customers' base. If not the most, then among the most commonly used productivity tools. But we also want to address it from a support point of view. Now, if you step back, and some of you may be in this realm, but Office 2013 is already out of mainstream support, and Office 2016 will leave mainstream support inside a couple of years. But that in itself isn't even the whole story. A little while ago, Microsoft announced pretty sweeping changes to its lineup. So if you are planning to upgrade to Office 2019, or perhaps you're getting a hardware refresh with 2019 installed, it's important to know how that product, Office 2019, plays with others. Right? So first, Office 2019 can only operate on the same laptop or desktop on which Windows 10 is installed, or on servers where the latest release of Windows Server is installed. Okay. Second, and this is critical to planning for both tightly coupled applications as well as potential transitioning to the cloud, the extended support period only lasts for 2 years. So in other words, instead of having your traditional 5 plus 5, you now have a 5 plus 2. So they've shaved 3 years off of that extended support cycle. And in about 2 years, in the 2020 timeframe, Office 2019 will no longer accept access, anything other than Office 2019 will not accept access to Office 365 services. So in other words, you have to have Office 2019 as your local install if in fact you plan to access Office 365. So all in all, if we add all these changes to the mix, then the next couple of years will demand quite a lot of thinking on your part. So let's just pause here just a moment and put all this into perspective, okay? Clearly, Microsoft is making it appear that continued on-premise deployments will become too costly to maintain, right? Remember how software assurance was matured to include things like license mobility and self-hosted applications? Well, all those rules still hold true, but now it's going to cost more to maintain this on-premise environment. The second point I wanted to bring up was that combining the price increases on the agreement in your organization uses the individual product, and this can increase or magnify your investment in the on-premise Microsoft licensing. In other words, what I'm saying is that the way you use your licenses, the way you upgrade, all of these policy and procedural decisions that you will have made can have a direct effect on how Microsoft behaves in your environment and how you must license it, right? The third point, we believe that Microsoft continues to address the life cycle of their products and their interoperability with other Microsoft products. When we say address, we mean they're constraining that somewhat. They're creating smaller and smaller spheres of compatibility. And this can influence your decision about your own applications or considering how you might transition to Office 365 and how that might be a solution that's worth considering and when it is worth considering. Now, Miro isn't advocating transitioning to the cloud. We're just saying that that prospect must be part of your internal conversations, right? And then the last part I really wanted to bring up was that of recent, Microsoft account teams have been broaching the topic of modern commerce or the modern workplace, okay? The changes that you've seen here, the changes we presented here today are part of the manifestation of that process. So while you are chatting with your Microsoft account team about your EA renewal, that individual or those individuals can obfuscate the price increases and support reductions and other changes by mentioning things like modern workplace environment, right? So we ask that you please do not allow yourself to become confused relative to what they're telling you and all of what we presented today. So some takeaways, right? There's a great deal of information here. We want to be very mindful of your time. So we chose these points with, with great deliberation. We've chosen these points with the greatest impacts. We'd be happy to discuss them further with you, so we encourage you to reach out to us. So let me just kind of run through these list of takeaways, right? We've listed just these three, but they are especially, we consider them to be especially important ones, and ones that require a lot of discussion within your organization, including with the C-level and other high levels within your organization. First and foremost, we cannot emphasize enough the importance of preparing for your upcoming EA renewal. And perhaps like never before, it's not time to do as you've always done. Instead, it's time to really, really scrutinize your Microsoft investment and determine how these changes now, melding them with your own needs and your own plans, can best be met. Right? The second point, if you are considering a transition to online services, the point may have just become more urgent for you. All right? Because of these changes, on-premise licensing could simply become too expensive, too costly to maintain. But understand that the switching to cloud is not quite as simple as it might be imagined or even presented by the Microsofts of the world. Nor will it be free or timely or without challenges. So these are topics that we'll want to discuss, and you'll want to discuss with your teams once you've had a discussion with us about it. And finally, and to that last point, we urge you not to go into this blindly. With the goal of achieving a flexible and defensible and affordable Microsoft environment, it's really worth it to understand all the different possibilities. So again, we invite you to talk to an expert like Miro and not to try to go it alone. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Sean and see if there's any questions.
Thanks, Tim. We have a bunch of questions, but we're really short on time here, so I want to just apologize to everyone who we didn't answer your question in the live broadcast. We'll follow up with you via email after the webinar so that we can make sure we get to you. But there is a question that a bunch of our audience members have asked, so this is the one I want to ask you, Tim. Basically, they want to know, is Windows 10 the last version of Windows, and is Office 2019 the last version of Office?
Very, very good questions. And the rumor mill is rife with saying that they indeed are. What Microsoft is reverting to is builds. And what you'll see instead is, instead of Office 2019 or Windows 10, you won't see them designated that way any longer. What you will likely see is simply the names Windows and Office and a build associated with them. So it in effect means the same thing, but it is a build able to be delivered at different schedules based on your licensing construct, and it affords Microsoft the opportunity to adjust their support lifecycle of these builds as they see fit. So for now, it's still referred to as 2019 and Windows 10, but don't be surprised within a couple of years' time to just see them drop that protocol altogether.
Thanks, Tim. That's going to wrap it up for us today. I want to thank Tim for helping us present, everyone else on the Miro team for helping prepare the information. If you have any further questions or would like a one-on-one session, please email us at sales@miroconsulting.com. Call us at 732-738-8511, extension 1208, or visit us on the web at miroconsulting.com. Thank you very much, and this ends the broadcast. Have a great day.